Hi, this is the dry ice bubbles lightning lesson. And let me show you what's in the kit, and then I'll kind of go through the lesson with you to show you what I do. Well, the kit is a pretty big box, but it includes a book, Big Bad Bubble. It includes the bubble maker. It has a whole set of gloves like this for the kids to wear. Scissor, hammer, tongs, a couple labeled cups, one with an ice cube and one with a dry ice, a bowl, the directions to the lesson, a little sort of cheat sheet booklet in case you want to read up on what's going on with the science experiment, some pre-made bubble solution that I will make for you if you're taking this to school, a string for one of the activities, and bubbles, and a tablecloth and some towels. What's not included in the kit is the hot water that you need to actually bring from your home, because I've discovered that schools don't have really hot water. This requires like pretty hot water, not boiled, but pretty hot, hotter than schools have. So I bring it in containers. And then also a styrofoam container of ice and dry ice that I have bought at King Soopers. I do that on my way to the school. And this is how to properly store dry ice in a styrofoam container. And I would supply that for you. You would need to supply the ice. Okay, so those are the different things in this kit. I start out the class, of course, with a PPLD introduction, very important. And then I ask the kids, what is a bubble? And sometimes I have trouble blowing a bubble. But I try to catch one and have them guess, or if they know, what a bubble is. I hold it up in front of the class, and there it goes. And they will usually know that it's soap, water, and air. But what they don't know is why it floats. Why does a bubble float? And it floats because of the warm air inside of it. Well, then I tell them I'm going to make bubbles today that drop like a rock to the ground. They don't float because they are filled with cold air. And so that's my introduction to dry ice bubbles. I read Big Bad Bubble to most grades. Sometimes I get the feeling that maybe a 4th grade or a 5th grade doesn't want to hear a story, so then I don't. But it just depends on the class that you're seeing. It's a silly story, and one part in it, it talks about what a bubble is. So that's why I read it. Okay, so after the story, I talk about the difference between an ice cube and dry ice. And I have my, like I've shown you, my dry ice here, and I will ask them, what is dry ice? And sometimes you can see the vapor really well. Well, they'll have some ideas about what dry ice is, usually something like frozen snow, something like that. So I talk about how it's frozen gas, and some classrooms have done the water vapor solid, liquid vapor solid lesson, some haven't. But I talk about how it is frozen gas, it's never liquid. And it's very cold, and it's negative 109 degrees. And if I should spill just a little bit of dry ice, I warn them not to pick it up with their skin, their fingers, because it'll burn their fingers. And so I just instruct them, if I spill something, which I don't, but just in case I did, to not touch it. All right. Then, of course, they know what an ice cube is. So I put these aside, and I am going to check on them a little later, and we will see what the difference between the dry ice and the ice cube is in just a little while. I tell them that the dry ice sublimates. That's the vapor coming off of it, and it's called sublimation. And that, of course, is in this little cheat sheet here. It's carbon dioxide. And again, it's very cold, and I warn them not to touch it. Okay, so that is the intro of this lesson. And next, I want to show them the dry ice bubbles. Here's my little maker here, and I have my warm water. Depending on how many classes I see, I have to make sure I bring enough hot water from my home. All right, and here's my bubble solution. Now the bubble solution has to be made ahead. I didn't today, so we'll see how well it works. I'm hoping it'll at least give you an idea of what goes on. But let's put in some dry ice. Put this over here. Now this is tricky because the lid is important. You kind of have to put it in such a way that it's going to cause the vapor to come out, but not to close it up entirely. All right, so you might have to adjust the lid here, but let's see if we can make a bubble. Now, interestingly enough, I have the towels because the bubbles work best on material. If I were to put it in my hand, the oil and whatever's in my hand does not really let that bubble last very long. It doesn't hurt me at all. But that's why I have the towel. And I explain that to the students. And at this point, I have the teacher hand each student a pair of gloves. And they all line up, and I give them each a dry ice bubble. And as you can see, like I've said, these are filled with cold air. And so there's no floating here. They drop like a rock, that's what I like to say. Okay. And so each child will be able to hold one, and depending on the size of the classroom, you could go around twice. And they'll even, if they fall as far as the floor, sometimes they bounce, which is fun to see too. Okay, so those are the dry ice bubbles. And I let this kind of bubble away as I move on to my next activity, which is a bowl. And what I do at this point is I put the string in the soap, so let it soak for a minute. That's important that that string soaks. I put some water in my bowl, some dry ice, okay, so I've got my bowl bubbling here. Kind of have to get it vigorous here. Might have to add a little more. Okay, and what I like to say is how to store dry ice to the kids and how it has to be in this porous container. And to show that the expansion that sublimating causes, I kind of like to show them this bubble. Kind of soak. And it sometimes takes me a bit. I should stop breathing on it, for starters. So we watch the expansion of the vapor. Kids love this part. Takes a little practice, and sometimes takes a few times to get it going, but at this point you have screaming kids. They think it's going to be loud. Okay, boy, that was a strong one once it finally was made. Again, email me, Betty McDonald at ppld.org if you have any questions. The very last thing I do is check on my ice cube and my dry ice. Ice cube has been melting because it's made of frozen water. The dry ice has been sublimating, so it's smaller and will just disappear eventually. And I like to show that to the kids. And that's dry ice bubbles. Thanks for watching.